It's been hailed by Jacinda Ardern as a world-first plan to cut on-farm emissions and help save the planet from devastation. But at what cost to our livelihoods? The government's consulting on a plan to make farmers pay for emissions from livestock and fertilisers from 2025. Dairy, meat and wool products comprise more than half of our export revenue in this country. The government consultation document warns that total revenue from the agriculture sector could be, quote, significantly affected by this plan. Sheep and beef net revenue, for example, could be slashed by up to 24%. And while overall Kiwi emissions would fall, the ACT Party says the plan could actually see a 33% increase on our current sheep meat emissions, as that production is shifted offshore to less climate-efficient countries. We've got some experts for you this morning. Dairy NZ Chair Jim Vanderpoel joins us from his farm, but also the Agriculture Minister Damien O'Connor is with us live from Wellington this morning, and we will start there. Minister, good morning.
Morena, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Will we see, is that true, will we see an increase in sheep meat emissions, global emissions, by doing this plan?
No, look, some of the studies around displacement and any reduction in production here shifting offshore has not necessarily been proven. I think we'll continue to produce. It's for high-value, discerning consumers who are looking for products that have a lower carbon footprint. That's the space that we have to be as a nation of food producers.
Yeah, but so just based on current modelling, because the whole thing is based on modelling, right? So presumably there are caveats with all of it. But as it stands, is that true that there'll be a 33% increase in global emissions from sheep meat by doing what you're doing?
No, I haven't seen those figures. I have seen the impacts on production here through a couple of the models that have been done. They are just models. They make a lot of assumptions. Just as we have been modelled to predict over 10% unemployment, through COVID, that has been proven to be wrong as well. Kiwis and Kiwi farmers are some of the most adaptable, innovative people in the world, particularly when it comes to food production, and they have a range of options in most land use. The impact on dry stock farmers we acknowledge is going to be more challenging than that of the dairy industry, but there are many options for some of that land, and we're seeing small plantings of forest for some areas. We will see maybe a little more beef and less sheep, but I think as we go through and identify sheep that are lower emitting, that we look at bolus and other technologies that reduce the methane, we will see that the impacts of this pricing of agricultural emissions won't be what the models predicted.
So what's the point in the models?
I think the issue is that the farmers understand why we're doing this, and I think if you look across
but hang on, Minister,
and you see the impacts of climate change.
You've done this huge consultation document. You've modelled that, for example, changes in production for lamb could be 16 to 20% down, for wool 16 to 20%, for beef 8 to 14% down. You're now saying the models might not be right. What's the point in any of this?
Well, Waka Economy did some modelling, MPI has done some modelling. They come up with different scenarios, and it's around the price. This is one tool to reduce our emissions, and a price on agricultural emissions is just an indicator and a message to farmers that there's incentives to reduce emissions because there'll be a lower cost. Now, those incentives and those messages usually go fairly clearly out to farmers, and they adapt to take up the technologies that will be available, to take that money that will be generated and put it back into R&D, and to provide some transitional assistance for those who might need it.
What does the modelling then say about how much our emissions will reduce by, and do you believe that modelling?
Look, I think the direction of travel is the important thing. 48% of our emissions as a country come from agriculture. We don't have to reduce methane to zero at all. We've set a target of 10% reduction from methane by 2030. I think that's quite achievable with existing technologies, and the direction of travel is the important thing, for what is our most significant and important sectors.
So you think we'll reach our target with existing technologies? So why are we doing this then?
Because it's really important that we have ongoing drivers and messages to farmers, existing technologies with some incentives through pricing. It's all part of the package that we've put forward. And what we're talking about is basically a proposal from industry leaders that spent 2 years working on the best options. They put the recommendations to government. There are a couple of questions that we're putting out through consultation. This is not finalised.
Okay, so you're open to changes. Can you just tell me what the overall impact on global emissions will be by us implementing what you have put forward?
As a country, we're a small portion of total global emissions, but food production across the globe and methane is a big part of the warming impact that we're trying to mitigate.
No, we get that.
Any technologies that we develop here, any technologies we will share with the rest of the world, and
we
people
understand
are
that.
looking out for solutions.
Yeah, Minister, we totally understand all of that. The question is, how much will global emissions reduce by as a result of the plan that you have put forward, the consultation document you've put forward? Isn't that totally crucial to the whole point of it?
Well, more importantly in that is that as an innovative food-producing nation, if we develop techniques to reduce methane in livestock production across the globe, it could have a massive impact. That's what we're focusing on.
Minister, there'll be some farmers watching this thinking it's just gobbledygook.
Well, it's not. If as many have been, hold on. If you look at what global warming is doing to our farming systems and the events that we have had to face, whether it's droughts on the west coast, whether it's rain events up and down our country, we have to do what we can to be part of a global movement to reduce our total emissions. Livestock emissions in our country and agriculture are 48%. We can't ignore it, so we're just proposing, and it's out for consultation, a price on emissions that will send a signal that incentivises farmers to reduce emissions. I think they can do it, and they will do it.
All right, Minister, thank you very much for your time this morning. I know you've got a plane to catch, so we will let you go. 16 after 7, that's the Agriculture Minister, Damien O'Connor. To respond, Dairy NZ Chair Jim Vanderpoel is with us from his farm in the mighty Waikato this morning. Morena, good morning. Jim?
Good morning, Ryan. How are you this morning?
I'm good, thank you. I trust you could hear what the Minister had to say. What's your response?
Well, I think you've got to remember, Ryan, we came up with the proposal with Hei Waka Kanoa because the government have put agriculture into the ETS, and we absolutely disagree with that for all the points you were making there. We thought that was absolutely the wrong thing to do. So we've put forward this proposal as an alternative to agriculture going into the ETS. And what we put forward was a complete package. And the point you made is when you tweak with some aspects of that, it changes the whole package. And that's the part we're trying to get our head around, what the potential implications of that are.
All right, and the tweaks that you're talking about, presumably one of them is the sequestration, and you're standing in front of some trees right now. Can you tell us about that issue?
Yep. So on over here, we have a whole lot of riparian planting that we've done. We've sort of fenced off a whole wetland, and it's all fenced off, and we've planted about 48,000 natives in there. That qualifies because it meets a certain criteria. Over my other side, I have some shelter belts and some other specimen trees and trees that are on the farm that don't qualify, even though they do the exact same job as far as helping New Zealand meet its climate change commitments, but because they don't meet a certain criteria, they don't qualify, and that for us just does not make sense.
Right, so you've got small little pockets around waterways or shelter belts that aren't counted, but if you had them in a bigger lot, they would be counted, and you say that's unfair. Do you think anyone's going to...
Well, that doesn't make
sense. Yeah.
Sorry, Ryan, I was going to make the point... Sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the actual, farmers are being asked to pay for their emissions, and if they're asking to pay for the emissions or their contribution to warming, surely they should also be recognised for where they are contributing to New Zealand helping meet its commitments to the Paris Accord.
Yeah, okay, take your point. Let's talk about the overall emissions reduction. Does it worry you that the Minister couldn't really articulate what impact this plan would have on global emissions?
Yes, it does, because I understand the principle. We understand the principle that New Zealand has committed to the Paris Accord. But if we have leakage from New Zealand where production goes offshore to much less efficient producers, that is not good for the world. It's not good for New Zealand because it impacts our earnings, and it's not good for the world because our total emissions globally go up, and that would be a very poor outcome.
Do you know how many farmers might go bust because of this plan if it was implemented as it's been put out at the moment, or how many workers might be displaced or need to be made unemployed?
We don't have those numbers because we've only just seen the government's proposal as they've put it out, so we're going through that, and over the next 6-week consultation process we will feed back why we believe that some of what they've proposed that they haven't accepted won't work, or what the potential consequences will be. So we will get those numbers, I just don't have them yet.